ninjas, my friends. With each episode, we try to bring a successful individual, the stories that we can listen to, be inspired about, and learn a bit more about different areas of career. And with this successful story comes their great motivation, resilience, and a lot more other learnings through the failures or mistakes that they have made in their life, because that is a constant, and that's something that we should be learning from our own mistakes and also from people around us. So please join me in welcoming Isha Chopra, all the way from Canada, who is the Director Strategy and Marketing of Toronto Business Development Center. Hi Isha, thank you so much for joining us on my first step ever podcast.
Thank you, Ishani. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure, because so far, whoever I had the opportunity to invite and speak with, they have left us with great wisdom and experiences. They have been entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, professionals. But today, I think I'm so excited to chat with you, because you are someone who has helped a lot of other entrepreneurs. You have nurtured them, you have shown them the ways, pre and post startup funding, and you have really spearheaded a lot of programs, acceleration programs, and a lot of pre-investment funding programs for entrepreneurs across different geographies. At present, you help people understand the job market and the startup product market in Canada, which is amazing. So I'll give a very quick background about Isha Chopra, who is our guest speaker today. Isha Chopra is passionate about creating a comprehensive ecosystem for entrepreneurs that create a positive impact on the overall global economy, and which is so very essential at this changing and very uncertain time. And I think startups and entrepreneurs who are creating jobs are really doing a very good help to a lot of other people who are really in the need of employment. But as I say that, they're also very skilled people who are yet not getting the opportunity to showcase their skills. And you are a very resourceful professional with a vision to help entrepreneurs bridge that gap between aspirations and reality. And I think that is the whole crux, when an entrepreneur, a young person who has this fire and vision, but really don't know how to go to that other side. And that's where, when you come in, and I think you helped a number of people. From what I understand and I've read about your journey, I see that you're very passionate about especially helping women find their feet in different industries through entrepreneurship, and off late develop the interest of helping startups who are moving towards sustainability, and from that perspective. So why did you choose to kind of nurture entrepreneurs rather than being an entrepreneur? How do you develop this interest?
Thank you. I think that's an interesting question, and thank you so much for making my introduction look even better and bigger. I think I developed entrepreneurship related interest while I was still in university, and I studied in United Kingdom for about 5 years. And at that stage, I started to feel that, though I'm studying finance, is this something for me? And we came up with multiple ideas around fintech and, figure out how it is going to work. Is this going to be compatible for Indian laws? Is it compatible for something that I can do in UK? And as an international student, that is something which is always a question, because you're not a permanent resident of the country. You still would go back with that idea. And is this idea going to be viable after my studies is always the question. So I did go back with a couple of ideas and did try to apply it. And again, just like any problem that entrepreneur would face, it's always about funding. So I did not apply them further, but I took a job at that stage when I moved back to India after completing my master's degree. And at that stage, I realized that this is something I want to keep doing. So in my first job that I took in India was with Thapar University. This was the Chandigarh campus, and the students were passionate about doing a lot of things. And that's when I could apply my learnings and the exposure of United Kingdom to India and start creating student-run ventures, which are supporting the community within the college or university. And at the same time, they're putting in a lot of entrepreneurial spirit to the entire thing. And it's, of course, bigger sort of an idea is to support the community while you're in that community in the university. So that was the idea. And that's where I actually started. And I think like any good student, participated in a lot of business challenges, a lot of entrepreneurial events. And yes, at that stage, only thing that in my mind was, yes, I'm going to be the next big entrepreneur with billions in my pocket. That's never the reality. I learned it quite fast. But the next step that I took was even more crucial, which was moving with IIM Bangalore with their biggest incubator in India, which is NSR Cell. It's the oldest in the country. And that was, I would say, quite a learning experience in my entire journey. And this was back in 2016 when I started with them, with the first cohort that they were doing. And again, it was, I think, entrepreneur in me that was letting me take this big risk of working on their very first cohort of blended learning to bring in women entrepreneurs. And blended learning was great because it was offline and online. The biggest challenge that women said was, look, we cannot be in the campus for 2 months, leaving my family, my children, or whatever I'm already doing. I'm already in a job. I don't know if I should leave it. It's my safety net. So I think all those things were answered with it. So yes, I think that's where it all started.
And it's lovely to see and kind of feel the spirit that you had since that time when you were young and you were in your college days. I think, as you mentioned, that being a part of community, you also wanted to kind of help to help the community progress, which I that kind of stuck when you were saying it. That stuck to my mind, which is a very, very great quality and a vision that you also had for other people to help them grow as well. It is always very important to, even if you are furthering your career, how can you help other people along with you? Because once the whole community goes to a certain level, the standard of living and the satisfaction quotient, everything kind of increases on that level. So you always had a very broad vision for on a global scale or maybe at a national scale, which is a very, very great quality. Now that, because we have you over here, and I'm very excited to go a little bit deeper into your thought process, since most of the audience today who are listening to us are young graduates, young professionals, aspiring leaders across the globe. I want us to go back to that phase while you were doing your master's and bachelor's. So that's where you've developed the interest. So can you take us through that first, if you remember, the first opportunity that came while you were in your college? What was going through your mind, and how did you have to really push yourself to say, come on, let's give it a try? It's okay if you're feeling, scared, but let's just give it a try. Or you were all okay with that and you just went ahead?
So the first thing that I think I came across, which really boosted my entrepreneurial spirit even high up, was something which was called academic board. So academic board back in Coventry University, where I studied both my bachelor's and master's, they were always passionate about listening to student insights, and I was on that board. And being selected for the board and talking a lot more about entrepreneurship as a subject, because it was very much a subject back then for me when I started, that was interesting. Whatever I was studying in my bachelor's or in my master's later on, it was all applied there. So be it finance, marketing, whatever we were discussing about, we were literally applying it in, day out. But more than that, I think what was really picking up, and this is early 2010s, and at that stage, it was more that people were starting to think about the impact more than just for profit businesses. And while I say impact doesn't have to be nonprofit, right? It can be for profit. You can still give back. You can still be mindful about the nature and the climate and everything else and still do whatever you're doing. Of course, when I say climate, it's not just the climate as an environment, it is the environment of a business. Because if you start a fintech company, so all those thoughts started to build up at that stage. And I still remember very fondly, I was selected for student union head. So I was heading student union of my campus for both my bachelor's and master's. And it was in a row without elections. I was just, I think, first elections I won, second elections never happened because they thought I was the obvious choice at that stage. And that felt good because this was all coming from the insights that I shared with my co-participants or the colleagues or acquaintances while in university, right? And I think it's also depending on the exposure that we've all had. So I had moved from a town of Punjab now to London, biggest economy, one of fondest ones that people want to be in the world. Made a lot of sense for me to experiment new things. But at the same time, that me, which is somebody rightly mentioned to me that there is nobody else between your success but the person in the mirror. So I was always judging myself much more on those perspectives at that stage, that I have a choice of being an investment banker. Do I really want to go back and start the impact again? And I was doing well. I was second in my class. it was absolutely fine. I was academically doing pretty sound. But one of the key decisions that I took at that stage was, look, I can do investment banking after a few years too. I will make slightly less money. Okay, slightly is a bad word. A lot less money than an investment banker would, while planning to do this impact. And that's why I wanted to go back to India, join an academic institution, and sort of build the entrepreneurship thing in there. But what I got when I came back was not exactly that. But yes, the role that gave me enough time and capacity to do those things, which was great for me, right? And that's what I wanted to do in the first place. And in 2.5 years, it was great to see the impact in that particular area, especially that there were young kids. Of course, MBAs is 21, 22 in India. My average class age was about 35 to 36 while I was in London, because it was all around banking, and most of the bankers came from Yorland, Australia, and Hong Kong, and different parts of the world to make a cohort. So now I had a lot of classmates who could really help me build that network. And that is one of the things that I would call upon all the listeners to also do, is that please fall upon your network, reach out to your network. One of the key things in entrepreneurship is networking. No matter where you are in the world, I've not met my colleagues, most of them I studied with in London for what, X number of years now. It's definitely more than 8 years since I met the last person from my cohort. We are in touch, we do Zoom calls. It is so easy to be in touch these days, but even more required is ask for help. Ask when you need something, reach out to people. There's nothing wrong in saying, hey, I'm looking for this sort of a supplier in manufacturing a device. Would you know somebody? Especially if you have friends who know such people, reach out to them. I think MBA is the best place to do networking. The only thing that I remember from my MBA is my cohort and networking. So other things, five porters or pestles and swats, I think there's enough time for you to learn that while you're on job too.
That sounds very, very intriguing, the journey that you took. I want to highlight that phase where you mentioned while you were in your university, when you got the chance, you really made the most out of it and you experimented. That's when you started nurturing entrepreneurs and you started mentoring other students. And that's when you realized that is also something that you enjoy besides being an investment banker going further. And then I think you had that choice whether you want to pursue being an investment banker then and there just after graduation, or would you like to go towards making an impact, as you mentioned. So I think it's a very, very interesting situation that you were in. A lot of us are in that situation at time and again in our life, and it is always a decision that we make. It is always from that point of view where we are standing, what is our right and what is our wrong. That is all that matters. So thank you for sharing your story and what led you to make those decisions. And we can clearly see where you are now, because that has helped a lot of other people, entrepreneurs in India and now in Canada, people coming all the way from the globe to Canada, and making a start or developing their products or expanding the market over there. So I think we have got a very, very learned and knowledgeable person to help anyone who wants to be in this particular in Canadian market. Yeah, so from that very important topic that you brought up was networking, which has time and again been brought up in each and every episode when we discuss this with every individual who has come here, and which is so important. I wanted to now go to the entrepreneurship phase. Like, since you have helped a lot of people, and listeners who are here, they're very young, and if they're starting out, they're starting at a very, very at a stage where it's a very volatile and a lot of things go wrong. You have to experiment a lot. For example, if you have to give them some tips, or maybe if you would like to tell us that if there is an entrepreneur who's wanting to launch, how do you help them, or what sort of a journey you have seen from other entrepreneurs, that what do they do right and what do they do wrong?
Yeah, I've seen both, and I've conducted some sort of research for my white papers as well, since I'm passionate about researching in this area too. One of the key things is, unlike, a decade before when there were not as many incubator programs or accelerators and other support systems available, now it is. So I think a lot of incubators, be it Y Combinator in US or be it TBDC in Canada or be there different ones, WeWorks and others in Australia. So, I think the best thing at this stage for any early stage entrepreneur is ask for help. Go enroll for one of those programs. There's so much resources available online. You don't want to pay for a program, It's okay. You don't have to invest in a program. You can always do it online. There's tons of resources available for free. And I think a lot of sense comes in that picture. For example, if somebody's starting without a business model canvas in place, very likely they're not sure about their own challenges that they're planning to face. They might think, okay, finance is my problem. Might not be. They might not have even analyzed the product enough. They've not figured out the product market fit. If you're selling in Australia and you choose a product which is not friendly to the people there, or not many customers are ready for it, you've not done your market research 100%, I don't think it would work. And when people say, oh, I'm MBA, I've completed my master's degree, I don't think I need to do business model canvas, I can just go ahead and launch my product. I think that's good to be confident, but that's overconfident, and there's a thin line between those two. The best thing to do is, any entrepreneur, you want to begin, start with a lean canvas. It is not rocket science. There's so many just Google the resource and say lean canvas, and you would find tons of resources there. Fill that out for yourself and be very honest while doing that. I would say be honest to yourself doesn't mean you will take it negative in your stride that, oh, let me think that I will only get 5 customers in first month. No, set yourself targets and try to achieve those. And this is what I think I've learned all through the programs that I've been running since 2016 now. And my programs have seen, so you'll be shocked to see for this particular podcast, I was calculating yesterday how many entrepreneurs have actually been engaged through my program so far that I've been heading. It's 20,000 women entrepreneurs. And
Wow.
I'm not talking about entrepreneurs. All of them don't even come with a degree. You guys are blessed to have 2 or 3 degrees already by the time you start, which means you have a lot of research and study that you've already conducted behind that particular domain if you're taking up finance and you're studying finance as well. So it's pretty seamless. I've had entrepreneurs who have just passed their 12th class, which is equivalent of level A's usually outside India, and they're doing good revenues. They are in revenues of close to 1 million now. And at the same time, I've worked with entrepreneurs who are PhDs, and they're also doing almost similar revenues. So it is definitely about knowing your product, knowing your customer, and time and again, it's always about listening to your customer. So those are few things that I've always got back from the people who are really doing it. But trust me, the journey can be lonely. You can have your colleagues who are making X amount as a job in McKinsey's and in KPMG's and all the best places that they want to be in. And at the same time, you might still be struggling to, sell it to first 5 customers or first 100 customers. But that's the journey that you have to choose on. And once you choose it, just be patient and stay focused. And I think that is something which will help you to stay passionate about what you are also doing. And not necessarily everybody's going to be fond of your product or your service in the first go, but it's a new how you take it in your stride.
Absolutely amazing. If I would like to just summarize that, what you've just mentioned for our listeners, that first and the foremost thing is that ask for help. And I think that is an amazing tip and advice that you can give to anyone, because we often are wired such a way that we feel that if we are asking for help, that is that we're showing other person that we do not know what we are doing, and we are making ourselves look like a fool in front of others. Actually, it's the opposite way around. Because you have done your research, there are a few things that you would like to get help with, or maybe get to know about certain things. So that's an amazing advice that you have given there, Isha. Thank you so much. The second and the third is that you mentioned know your customers and know your product. Very, very important. And very on the most important is to be consistent and not compare yourself, which is the hardest, I would say, because in the way that we are brought up, we associate age with the success state that we should be at. And once you choose entrepreneurship journey, it's never the same. One has to accept that fact. So thank you so much for taking us through those very important points in a very, very crisp and very interesting way that you have shared with us today. Are you able to take us through just one example of an entrepreneur, if you would like to? If there's some one particular story that has stood out in your career so far, if you would like to share with our listeners.
No, absolutely. I think I can definitely pick one. And this comes from one of my favorite entrepreneurs based out of Delhi. So she's the one, when she came for one of my programs for Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women that I was heading for IM Bangalore, she joined that and she was really thankful, So they're entrepreneurs who would be grateful for what they learn, and there would be entrepreneurs who would be grateful for the money they make. It's a personal choice. But one of the key things I think I learned from her was being grateful for what she was learning. She was the one, so the one that I mentioned that, so she told me, and it really touched my heart at that stage, was, you know what, by selecting me to this program, you really made change to my entire life, because forget going to a college, I've never seen a college before this. And coming to IIM Bangalore, which is one of the most prestigious schools to be in India, it is really taking me to where I wish I could be. That is one thing. And at the same time, I saw that women, in 1 year, she has applied the entire business growth plan taught by the faculty at IMB to her business. And this is amazing because, of course, I cannot disclose the name and thing. I was not aware that I would be asked to share a question, because I would have taken her permission before talking directly about her name. I'm sure she would love to hear about it as well, anyways. But that is something you have to be ready for, be ready to learn at any age. So I'm talking about a woman who's in late 30s, has a child, is running the business on her own, is a sole founder of her business, has started business from nothing. She was into insurance selling before she started doing what she's doing now. So I'm sure she did not have as much investment available to her. But the only thing is, life made her choose that path quicker because she did not have a choice. Most of the times, one of the things that I've seen is with the entrepreneurs, and this trend has repeated itself over and over again. And of course, I've worked directly with over at least 200 entrepreneurs, and I know them by name and what they do, is that the people who have made the choices and at right time. But the only question here then is, what is the right time? This is that opportunity would present to you at once and you just grasp it. And that's what she did, because she left, I think, some few lakhs in Indian rupees as business to come for the program in person while she was selected for it for a couple of weeks, and not think that she lost that opportunity, because she went back and she actually made it 10x, learning this thing and going back and applying it. So it's always about the choices that you make. And of course, don't let others judge your business, because they don't really know what circumstances you're in, and they would never know or want to know until they're part of the business. So the good thing is about being an entrepreneur, you can actually just take decisions all by yourself, which can be really intimidating at times, but this is the scope of being an entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Isha, for sharing that example with us. And it was a really last minute question that I threw at you, but it just happened to come in my mind. And I always love to share experiences and stories that could really help our listeners. I might get into touch with you and see if we have the permission of this amazing lady so that we could share her story. If not, it is still a very, very good example, a story that you have shared with us today. And
No,
before,
absolutely. I think she would love to.
yeah, awesome. As TBC, which is Toronto Development Business Development Center, they help people, entrepreneurs and startups, to set up the business in Canada market. Are you also able to take us through maybe some websites or some sort of programs which you are aware of that the young entrepreneurs, the ones who's just entered in the market, can actually apply?
So, if it is a young entrepreneur and you're planning to just start up, I would suggest you can go to actually our own website. It's tbdc.com. If you go to the resources, we have collated resources from the North America that we found useful for entrepreneurs, and they're all conducted online. So, you can always refer to those. And another one that you could really go back, if a lot of your colleagues are from India and are interested in joining Incubator once they've completed their degree after going back, go up to nsrcell.org. That's a fabulous place to learn too, because they are the pioneers in the research of entrepreneurship, which is absolutely fabulous, because you cannot really take next step. And I think that's a problem of having a degree, is we do research on every little piece. We do not, just go ahead and apply it. I don't think a guy owning a small retail shop would do that much research. He would just go and apply it quickly, versus us, we would do, I think, a lot of research, and that's where we lose time. So go ahead, still study, keep reading a lot on the entrepreneurship. Please do not compare your journeys with others. Not any journey is going to be same at any point of time in life. So take a stride at being an entrepreneur, and do let me know if you need any help from me. I'm happy to coach, engage, advise, be a mentor to any entrepreneurs who are planning to start up.
Those are very, very important places where one can start gaining information and see through how they can go ahead. And also for offering your sort of mentorship and coaching for any young entrepreneurs listening to us and is interested and would like to get in touch. Before you leave, Isha, can you please leave our listeners with a thought or a saying that you resonate with?
It is journey of necessity is a lonely one. It might sound very strong at first, but I have applied this for the past 10 years in my life. So every time you feel necessity, trust me, you might feel very lonely at the same time, but that's how it is. So if you're on a journey of any necessity, it is definitely going to be lonely. So earlier you reflect on it and learn from this, it's going to be easier for you to move on with it.
Wow, I think this episode was packed with so much information, what all goes behind in an entrepreneurship journey, and also about you and your motivation. And you're doing a really, really amazing job. When I first read about you in the article, I was really interested to know how and why did you decide to be on a journey of nurturing the entrepreneurs as opposed to being an entrepreneur, because that's what we see nowadays most. So thank you, Isha. I'm really grateful that you could take out some time today for this, and knowing that you're really busy. So that means a lot. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your expertise with our listeners today. And I'm going to leave all the links in the Instagram channel very soon once we release this episode. So thank you, Isha. Thank you so much.